Okay, let's start practicing our conversions between different units. So when we are converting between different units, we're going to use a technique called dimensional analysis. If you've taken chemistry, you may have heard that before. But basically what dimensional analysis is using multiplication of a conversion factor to rewrite one unit in terms of another. And I'll give you a quick demonstration of how we would use multiplication to do that. Let's say that you go to an amusement park and the amusement park says you have to be 48 inches in order to ride this ride. And you want to know, well, how many feet is that? 48 inches, how many feet is that? The way that you could convert inches, which is a unit of length, to feet, which is also a unit of length, is to use the conversion factor. The conversion factor is that they're 12 inches and 1 foot. So what you could do is, and I'm just going to write it over here on the side, on the right side, you could say 48 inches, that's what we're starting with, and write it over 1, and then multiply by the conversion factor. So the conversion factor is that they're 12 inches and 1 foot. I'm going to write the 12 inches at the bottom and the 1 foot at the top. And the reason we're doing that, if you remember from the previous video, it's so that the inches in our original quantity and in our conversion factor will eliminate each other, and what we'll be left with in terms of units is the foot. And now we multiply the numbers as we normally would. So 48 times 1 going straight across, 48 times 1 is 48, and going straight across, 1 times 12 is 12. And then if you can reduce 48 over 12, you'd be able to put that into your calculator, 48 divided by 12, and get either a smaller fraction or a whole number. And 48 divided by 12 is actually a whole number. So it's 4, and the unit we're left with is feet. So then you'd say, okay, well, a person has to be at least 4 feet tall in order to ride that ride. Well, you can use this same technique to convert any unit to another unit as long as you have the conversion factor between those units. So, for instance, if you were to go to Europe, things are measured in meters, in centimeters, as opposed to inches. So, let's say you wanted to know if let's say you bought something and you wanted to know if it would fit back home in your closet. And you know your closet is 36 inches wide. And what you bought in Europe is 48 centimeters. Is 48 centimeters wider or more narrow than 36 inches? Who knows? Let's convert centimeters to inches. So let's do that problem that I just made up there. Convert 48 centimeters to inches. So how would we do that? We'd write down 48 centimeters, cm is the abbreviation, over 1, and multiply the 48 centimeters over 1 by the conversion factor. The conversion factor between centimeters and inches is right here. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So let me ask you, would you write the 2.54 centimeters at the top of your conversion factor or the bottom? You'd write it at the bottom. And you'd write 1 inch at the top. Why? Why would you write 2.54 centimeters at the bottom? Because we want the unit of centimeters to cancel out, and we want inches to remain. So we cancel centimeters and centimeters. and we multiply straight across. So 48 times 1 is 48. 1 times 2.4 is 2.54. And the unit that we have left is inches. Now we'd like a simplified number for 48 divided by 2.54. So I'm going to type that into my calculator, 48 divided by 2.54. And I get 18.897, or about 18.9. So 18.9 inches. So 48 centimeters is 18.9 inches. So if your closet is 36 inches wide, will something that's 48 centimeters fit? Yep, it'll fit in your closet because it's really only 18.9 inches. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use these conversion factors to convert between units. Now, the ones that you're going to use most often in pharmacy are going to be the units involving mass and volume. And you can probably figure why. When you're thinking about medications and prescriptions, it's often important to know how much of that medication or prescription in terms of how much it weighs or in terms of how much it fills, the volume. So the mass is how much it weighs, how heavy it is, and the volume is the space it fills. So often you're going to be converting between ounces and grams. Pounds and tons, yes, we can convert between pounds and tons and grams or kilograms. But typically, and I'm just thinking about the context of prescriptions, when you're measuring amounts, you're not typically measuring a ton of something, right? Think about the scale on which you measure prescriptions. It's pretty small, right? Pretty small amounts of whatever prescription drug you're thinking about. So we're thinking in terms of ounces and grams typically. So if you're trying to remember your conversion factors, and you will have to remember these conversion factors. One really important one I would say would be useful for you to remember is the conversion factor between ounces and grams, because that one you'll be using quite a bit. So 1 ounce is 20.35 grams. It's just like you remember that one day is 24 hours. You know that 1 week is 7 days. You don't even have to think about it really too much. You know that conversion factor. If someone said, I have lived in Columbus for 36 months, you say to yourself, okay, so that's 3 years. How do you know that? Because you know 12 months are in a year. So we're pretty comfortable in general converting in time units, seconds to minutes, minutes to hours, hours to days, etc. But with prescription conversions, you want to get comfortable converting mass units and volume units. And so one out of all these conversion factors, if you're trying to think, okay, which ones should I memorize? Which ones are definitely going to be in the test? I can't tell you. I haven't taken the test, but I can tell you that one of the most relevant ones on here is the ounces and grams conversion. 1 ounce is 28.35 grams. So if you're writing down flashcards, that would be a good one to put on your flashcard. Another good one, so we're talking about which dimensions would you typically see in pharmacy, is volume. Volume. So milliliters, we might convert between liter and cup or ounces, liquid ounces, fluid ounces. So when you're thinking about which conversion factors down here, it might be good to remember. Which ones might you want to make a little flashcard for? 1 gallon is 3.785 liters. Also, 1 centimeter cube is 1 milliliter. Now, there are a few others here, and all of these are good to know. All of these are important to remember. Like 1 mile is 1.61 kilometers, or the one that we used earlier, 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. There are applications in which you need to be able to convert between Celsius and Fahrenheit, or if we're talking about pounds and kilograms, there are cases where you need to convert that. An example, for instance, you might not be looking at the prescription, but you might have to use a formula in which you need to know the weight of the person in kilograms. So a person shows up and they weigh, let's say, 150 pounds. Well, how many kilograms is that? Because in order to know how much of a particular drug they need, you need the kilograms. So 1 pound is 0.454 kilograms. Okay, or maybe you need to know the temperature at which a prescription must be stored. And that requirement is given to you in Celsius. But the device that you're using measures temperature in Fahrenheit. How do you convert between the two different types of temperature? 1 degree Fahrenheit can be found by multiplying 5/9 times the degrees Fahrenheit minus 32 degrees Celsius. So again, I'm not telling you not to memorize all 10 of these conversion factors, but if you're thinking about maximizing your memory capacity and your time, the ones involving mass and volume are pretty important. And even, I would say, temperature as well. All right, now we have the apothecary system, which is a historical system, but it's one that's still used. It's been gradually replaced by the metric system, but some pharmacists still use it. And as it says here, it might be seen on old medication dosages and some vials and bottles in the pharmacy setting. So it would be good to know the conversion factors between apothecary units and metric units as well. And so they give those here. The minimum is 0.06 milliliters. Now notice, like they say, I minimum is 1 drop. I. That's a Roman numeral, the Roman numeral for 1. XV or XVI minimum is 1 milliliter. What is XV? What is that as a number? So X is 10, V is 5, so 15, or 16 minims is 1 milliliter using Roman numerals. 1 fluid gram is 60 minims or 5 milliliters, and 1 fluid ounce is 6 fluid rams or 30 milliliters. So we can use those conversions along conversions here. This table just continued on the next page where they tell us 1 grain is between 60 and 65 milligrams. 1 scruple is 20 grams or 1.3 grams, and 1 dram is 60 grams or 3.9 grams. These are conversions I would remember because here, again, what are these apothecary units measuring? Volume and weight. Those are the most relevant units to a pharmacist. So when we're talking about the American and SI units, you want to sure you have memorized, if nothing else, mass and volume units and their conversions, and the apothecary units, volume and weight. So we have some practice questions here. Convert 5 grains to milligrams. So we're going to use our technique of multiplication. 5 grains over 1 times the conversion factor. Now when we look in the chart, it says 1 grain is 60 to 65 milligrams. And they're telling us here in the problem to use 65 milligrams. So we're going to say 65 milligrams is 1 grain. Why did I put the grain at the bottom? 1 grain at the bottom. We did that so that the grains unit would cancel. And so now when we multiply straight across, we'll get our answer in milligrams. So let's see what that is. I'm taking out my calculator. I'm going to multiply 5 times 65. We get 325, and 1 times 1 is 1. And anything divided by 1 is itself. So 325 milligrams is our answer. C. All right, number 2. Convert 6 fluid rams to milliliters. So we'll do the same thing. 6 fluid rams over 1. Now we need our conversion factor. 6 fluid rams to milliliters. All right, so if we remember, this was on the previous page, and we're going to try to memorize it. All right, fluid rams. So fluid ounces was more than fluid rams. Milliliters. Fluid ounces was 30, and that was 6 fluid rams. 5. I'm going to say 5 millimeters. And here it is. 1 fluid ram is 5 milliliters. See, we're trying to make connections to help us remember. I remembered 30 was to 5, just like 6 is to 1. So 1 fluid ram is 5 milliliters. So where are we going to write the 1 fluid ram and where are we going to write the 5 milliliters? 1 fluid ram goes to the bottom, and 5 milliliters is at the top. Fluid rams will cancel those units. We multiply straight across, and we get 30 over 1, which is the same as 30. So 30 milliliters is the unit that's left. So C again. All right, number 3, convert 0.5 grains to milligrams. We know 1 grain is between 60 and 65 milligrams, and they told us to use the conversion factor. 1 grain is 65 milligrams. So we'll write 1 grain at the bottom and 65 milligrams at the top. Grain and grain cancel. We'll multiply 0.5 times 65 right across the top, and we get 32.5, and 1 times 1 at the bottom is 1, so 32.5 milligrams. So that's A. Household system. More conversion factors. The household system is what most Americans use to measure volume and weight in household goods. As with the apothecary system, all systems are converted to the metric system when making calculations. The most commonly used household measurements include the teaspoon, tablespoon, fluid ounce, cup, pint, quart, and gallon. So when you're thinking about the household system, think about what you would see in a recipe book. What measurements of weight and volume would you see in a recipe book? You would see tablespoon. You would see cup or teaspoon. So we like to be able to convert these household system units to our metric system units when we're making calculations. And it gives us a helpful hint here. It says, when providing instructions to patients in household units, caution them to use a standardized measurement instrument often provided with the medication. Meaning that if you tell your patient you need to take a teaspoon of this daily, let's say, that you're also telling them make sure you're actually using a teaspoon, a measured teaspoon, something that says 1 teaspoon on the spoon, and not just, oh, this little spoon looks like it's about a teaspoon, that they need to use 1 measured teaspoon. So we have more conversion factors here between teaspoon in milliliters, tablespoon in milliliters, fluid ounces in milliliters. This is a common one. 1 fluid ounce is 30 milliliters. 1 cup, 1 pint, 1 quart, and 1 gallon. And actually, if you remember that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters, you can arrive at the values for cup, pint, quart, and gallon, knowing the relationship between those and ounces. There are 8 ounces in a cup. So if there's 8 ounces in a cup, what's 8 times 30? 240. So 240 milliliters. Then there's 2 cups and a pint. 2 times 240, 480. 2 pints and a quart. 2 times 480, 960. And 4 quarts in a gallon. And so I've seen a really nice picture, and you can probably Google it and find it online. But they have a gallon. Let's just call this a gallon. I'm not a drawer, but that's a gallon. And in that gallon, there's 4 quarts, right? Quart being the root meaning 4, like 4 quarters in a dollar. So there's 4 quarts. So that's a quart. And then within each quart, there's 2 pints. So it's prettier online. And then within each pint, there's 2 cups. And you can't see my little C, but each of those 2 cups is inside the pint. So look for a picture like that online that just shows the relationship between gallon, quart, pint, and cups. One way you can remember that the order of the sizes, so gallon is the biggest. And then we can break gallons into 4. Those are our quarts. Now a pint is smaller than a quart. Think about a pint of ice cream, like Ben & Jerry's or Haagen-Dazs, or just a small pint of ice cream. That's smaller than that paper quart of milk. If you've ever gotten a quart of milk that has the little carton, the little paper, like milk carton, that's a quart. I'm not talking about the half-gallon size. Maybe I should say like buttermilk. Like buttermilk comes in a quart size. Yeah, go to the grocery store and peruse the dairy aisle, and you'll see what I mean. Heavy cream comes in quart sizes, but they're little cartons. You can even get a quart of milk as well in a paper carton, and that's more than a little pint of ice cream. And a pint is more than a cup. 8 ounces. A pint is 16 ounces. So, and then we have a conversion for ounces to grams and pounds to grams as well. Those are weight conversions. All right, so we have practice questions. Convert 1.5 quarts to milliliters. 1.5 quarts milliliters. What's our conversion factor? 1 quart is 960 milliliters. We multiply 1.5 times 960. You get 1,440 quarts cancels milliliters. Now let's say you're taking the test and you just cannot remember the conversion factor that 1 quart is 960 milliliters, but you remember the conversion factor that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. So you know you can go from ounces to milliliters. So you remember this one. 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. And you're starting off at 1.5 quarts. And you're saying, how can I go from quarts to milliliters? Well, if you can get from quarts to ounces, you can get from ounces to milliliters. So what you could say is, well, I know there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon, but I know that 1 quart is 2 pints. And then I know that 1 pint is 2 cups. And then I know that 1 cup is 8 ounces. And now I can say 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. Right? So let's say you drew your picture and you were able to use the quart, pint, cup, ounce conversions. You were able to use these 3 conversions to go from quarts down to ounces. Would you still get the same answer? Let's see. So we're going to multiply 1.5 times 2 times 2 times 8 times 30. When you multiply all those together, you get 1,440, and 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. You get the same answer. 1,440 milliliters. So even if you don't remember the quickest conversion, the most precise conversion that you need, but you remember another one, use that other one to help you to get to the unit that you need. Number 5, convert 3 tablespoons I don't know why I'm going to brain fart here. 3 tablespoons. Convert that to milliliters. So 1 tablespoon is 15 milliliters. If you didn't remember that, you can say to yourself, okay, well, a tablespoon is half of an ounce. And I know that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. So half of 30 is 15. You can use this one and the relationship between ounces and tablespoons, or ounces and teaspoons, to help you. Tablespoon and tablespoon will cancel. 3 times 15 is 45. So 45 milliliters. And finally, ounces to grams. 4 ounces. 1 ounce is 30 grams. Ounces and ounces cancel. 4 times 30 is 120, and we're left with grams. So C is the answer. So you want to memorize these. You want to memorize these conversion factors. But again, if you're trying to save memory, if you're trying to figure out, okay, I can't memorize all of these, what's the most important to memorize? Memorize that 1 fluid ounce is 30 milliliters, and then draw this picture. Because when you have this picture, you have the relationship between gallons, quarts, pints, and cups. And each cup is 8 ounces. You can even do one with the spoons and show that you have 2 tablespoons. There's a picture on Google as well. 2 tablespoons is 1 ounce. and 3 teaspoons is in 1 tablespoon. This is just a visual way to help you to remember. Another way that you can remember these conversion factors, look at the fluid ounces and the weight ounces. They both correspond to 30 of the corresponding metric unit. 1 fluid ounce is 30 milliliters. 1 ounce of weight is 30 grams. So 1 is 30. All right, and that's it for conversions. So I'll put a practice page up on Edpuzzle for conversions. Right now there's just a practice page for Roman numerals. We'll do a practice page for conversions, and then we'll move on to fractions, decimals, and percents.